Good morning, it's November 16th. Ron and I are here today to review several topics with you. I have a license agreement with Ron to utilize his materials. The agreement requires me to share this notice. I do have his written permission to utilize his products in this manner. This disclaimer protects us as well as you. The information that will be presented today is for educational and informational purposes only. None of it is going to be advice. Anything we talk about today, both us, Ron and I, as well as you, is covered by this disclaimer. You and you alone are responsible for how you evaluate and utilize the information that you learned today. Our agenda is to review the current version. We'll look at the new market forecast for 2024 and the update for that. And we have no Visions demo planned. However, we are available to answer your questions during this meeting. The current version is A. It was updated September 6th. The search for chart data was the portion of the program that was updated. If you're ever having problems running Visions, please get in touch with us. Make sure that you're using version A. Visions operates best when run in an administrative mode, so please implement the Windows 10 support notice to do that. Here's the market forecast for 2024. Normally Ron takes it away at this point, but we had some audio recording problems and I did not get the first portion of his presentation recorded. As we start this, let's review again the factors that were selected at the beginning of the year. The interest rates, we chose a transition from 2023 of up to being flat. The unemployment rate, we thought that it was going to go up this year. The price of oil remaining flat. GDP growth rate would remain flat. The U.S. dollar would remain stronger, and this being 2024 is the fourth of the presidential year. Consumer sentiment remaining the same, going down, and the centric chart view was C to A to B. Using those factors, you can see how well we matched up to 2023 and then use the projection to render a projection for 2024. That projection told us that we could expect a 7 to 9% increase in the market. Here we're looking at it in a little bit more detail, and you can see that the growth being up to a level of about 5160 at the end of the year, 7 to 9% increase, which is a good increase for an annual rate. Applying our year-to-date factors and positions and prices, we have this 2-year chart. You can see how well the market's kind of just steadily going up. Looking at more detail, here it is. We can see that the market has risen higher than the forecast. And the 50-day moving average, the blue line, is on a pretty steady trend moving up. If we think about changing some of the factors, you say, okay, unemployment isn't necessarily up, it's flat. Then you can see that this brings the forecast up some and starts kind of matching fairly well to the year-to-date performance of the market. We're fairly close with that factor. And there's still some upside remaining in the year by changing the unemployment from up to flat. If we do a similar thing to interest rates, we move them from flat to down.
Because when you move interest rates down, the forecast goes up. So, which is done a little bit, although the Fed now has kind of said, well, maybe they're kind of done. I think Powell thinks that, looking at what the data says, we're at 2.5%, I think, on inflation, and he wants to get it down to 2, but he's got to be awful careful. So this forecast of him cutting again probably, I don't think is going to happen, at least in my mind. Things have not, changed significantly on the economy to say, hey, I've got to lower it to keep things okay. I think he's going to keep it flat. So if we add both of those to the my forecast, what does that say? A lot of upside left in the market. So the trend that it's on looks like it's going to be okay. If interest rates, don't move down anymore, then, the forecast would be a little bit less than what it is. So, good shape. Between now and the end of the year, I think, it should be a good 2024. Go to the next slide, you can see where the normal forecast was. So the actual has been doing better than what I had forecast. And I think the biggest factor there is interest rates. So it's not gonna, they've moved down a little bit, but they haven't moved down by 2 or 3, percent or points, I guess. It's been 0.25 and 0.5. So we'll see what happens going into next year. I'll be putting the forecast together at the end of December. So we have one more month of actual to work with. And right now, I don't see any, unless there's a major event in the world, a war or something, China goes after Taiwan, that would be a significant event. So we'll see what happens. If we look at outlook on the S&P 500, it says from where we are right now, we had a little correction this last week, but that's kind of flattening out and a little upside between now and December and starting in January. So this is where we're at. Looks good by the end of the year. You can be conservative and still make a lot of money. Based on what the option premiums are. So again, you want to be cautious. Don't get too wild. Take money off the table when you can. So that's where we're at. Anybody have any questions, comments?
Yes, Ron. You have any perception of how Treasury yields are impacting the whole market and how that might be moving money out of the market into bonds, into Treasury bonds?
Well, yeah. It's, I think the election did one thing. I think it kind of stabilized the people looking at, okay, where's the economy going to go? Okay. And with, all the things that are being talked about, tax cuts and drill, that's going to, it's going to force the price of oil down, right? Supply demand, the more supply, and that is going to benefit a lot of industries. Lower oil prices, since it's used in everything, every industry, transportation, plastics, everything is driven by oil. You lower that price, and everybody gets the benefit. Everybody in that supply chain of oil gets a benefit when the price goes down. Their margins go up. And, if we start selling oil at $50 a barrel, that's going to drive the price down worldwide, right? And now, Europe wants to buy natural gas from the U.S. Well, you got to be able to transport it. So there are some refineries or some of these ports that were underway that were kind of halted. Hopefully now they'll be restarted, and the U.S. can in fact export a lot of energy. That's that's very profitable. So that's going to help the economy, I think, significantly. Not only the debt, but I think the economy, because the price of oil is built into everything. Not only gasoline. You say, okay, $3, $3.50 gas, it's fine. You drive that down to $2.50. That helps everybody, but I think the other parts is using where oil is used so significantly in our economy. So that should be a benefit. So next year, I think we're going to see a good year as long as there is no major catastrophe like China going after Taiwan. There already are rumors that Ukraine and Russia are going to get their things settled, so we'll see what happens there. But Iran, well, big question mark. I thought Israel would be more aggressive in taking out some of the Iranian oil depots and that sort of stuff, and they haven't. So Iran can still ship a lot of oil, but their profit will go down at $40 to $50 a barrel. They're not getting 70. So I think oil will in fact go down. So if you're in that particular sector, you want to be aware that that's kind of the direction, at least in my feeling at least. I don't know what everybody else thinks there in that arena, but...
Well, and I think the big green deal is going to come to a halt where they wanted everything to go to election. I think after the election, I think there's going to be a lot of changes in that area to where we continue to run our vehicles the way we do.
Oh, I think so. Yeah, right. I mean, the mandate for EV is going to probably go away. I mean, there's an opportunity to have EVs, but can't force everybody to move.
And the problem with living in the West, we have a second home in St. George, Utah, which is 300 miles from house to house. If you have an EV car, you can't make it to St. George without stopping on the way and having to charge.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got backups at the few EV stations to where people on holiday weekends and that are tied up for 4 hours to get their car charged.
Get a charge, yeah.
And now they're charging the cars. They're charging a fee to charge your car now. It's no more money for free.
So the economics are changing.
They are.
They want to get paid for not only the infrastructure for the charging station, but you're going to pay for the electricity too. So that's
you got to make a buck somewhere for heaven's sakes.
Yeah. Right.
My only problem I see is that the EVs don't pay any fuel tax.
They're talking about a mileage tax. No.
Mileage tax. I think, they got to do something because they got to help pay for the roads.
Yep.
The extra weight is going to, cause the roads to deteriorate a little faster. You carry all those batteries around. I know it affects tires. I've got a son-in-law who has a Tesla, and he said he can't believe it. His tires are wearing out so fast. He says, wait a second, spend a lot of money on tires that I didn't spend before. I saved it maybe on electricity, EV, but my costs are going up.
But the cars are so heavy with all the batteries.
That's it, all that weight, right? So what I'm saying, it's a drain on the infrastructure. The roads get deteriorated. Bridges, there's a lot of bridges that have problems. So get all those EV cars on the bridge, it might collapse. I don't know.
And then when the cars catch on fire, the fire department can't put them out.
Well, yeah, there's been a few problems here in Florida with the surge of salt water. A few cars did start on fire. People drive through this stuff and they don't realize, hey, these batteries can take the salt water. They think they're okay. It's only 2 feet deep, but
never thought of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of things that are going to have to be redone down the road to make this thing really, really successful. So.
Hey, Ron, let me ask you. There was before the election there was sort of a Trump effect, and I heard that in 2016 it lasted for about 2 months before it corrected. How much do you think there's any contribution of the rise in the market around the election to what they called the Trump effect?
Oh, absolutely. And the thing is, I think it's in the energy sector, because I think the economy every company's going to benefit, and they may keep their prices where they are. Okay, they're not going to lower their prices; they're going to increase their margin. If they can increase their margin, they'll invest in new opportunity and also reduce their overall cost by, building, better equipment or better manufacturing processes because they have the money to do it, the capital. So I think that effect is going to be significant. If the U.S. gets back to being, superpower with energy, we have more oil in the U.S., including, Alaska, right, than Saudi Arabia has, or Russia. That's at least what I've read or heard, is saying, we have more than everybody else. So why aren't we supplying the world with oil? Okay, the opportunity is there. It's in the ground. Let's, but this, the last, current administration, basically put the kibosh on drilling and, increasing productions. So I think it's going to be a significant change. So you call that the Trump effect? You can, but it's, I think it's real. This is real. This is just not hype. I think Trump will be able to get that stuff through the administration, and even the XL pipeline.
Well, if you recall, it was either the last session or the session before that when I said that I had heard that there's a possibility of going back down to $50 oil. I don't know if that's true or not, and certainly right now, I don't see the potential effect of that.
Well, Tommy and I have been watching the rig count. Okay, the rig count went down this year by 32 rigs. I think we looked at it today.
Is that long-term rigs or fracking?
It doesn't include fracking. I don't think it includes fracking. These are
Okay, that's good.
conventional rigs
Conventional rigs. Okay, so
in the U.S.
So the fact that they're down means, that production is not there, right? The opportunity is those rigs are there. They may, and the opportunity for those companies to use idle equipment, right? Is because there's going to be a, ability to sell a lot of oil. Because now, it basically take the fact that, they're holding it down during the whole year, the last 4 years, that's a significant opportunity. Now, will the price of oil go down? It probably will. One of the things that I have heard is the way Trump is going to combat Russia is drive the price of oil down. It has to be above $40 a barrel. Below that, or below 44, Russia is in trouble. They can't produce it.
Well, I don't know if you know what's happened. Is Trump, I'm doing the same thing Biden, but Putin has gotten around a lot of their sanctions by they're taking oil tankers that are supposed to be scrapped, and they're not scrapping them, but they're changing the names and they're taking out the transponders so that they don't show up on the oil movement, and then they're taking them into different ports. So they're essentially selling Russian oil. But once they take it to a refiner, then they can sell it directly. They'll bring it into New York. Supposedly New York has been taking Russian oil, and that's how he has kept his economy higher than the Americans expect.
Right, yeah.
One of the ways.
Finding ways to just like Iran, right? Same thing. They're selling a lot of oil, to China and to the other parts of the world. So,
well, you saw that get together of it was Putin, it was India, it was China, and I forget who else was in there.
China.
I'm sorry?
China.
Okay. So
Egypt.
So that's that's why I think we have a good chance next year of having a very, very good situation. So, like I said, I caution that with war. Where is it Iran? We're going to still have the conflict in the Mideast unless something really happens to get that all squared away. But there haven't I say Israel has not gone after the Iranian, I'll call it oil ports, and their nuclear stuff. they've kind of taken out their radar and stuff and said, okay, we're going to make sure we have the opportunity if we need to send a lot of stuff to blow up a lot of stuff, okay? But they haven't done it yet. So it's it's still on the table. And the question is, if that happens, what happens to the rest of the world? I mean, that's a significant event.
Well, I've got a question for you, Ron, and everybody here. Is where is the debt in the country? I mean, typically when we have a major correction, it's a reconciliation of debt. And in 2008, a lot of it came out of the real estate market, and the parsing of mortgages, where they went out of sight and people couldn't even figure out how the mortgages were who owned half of these mortgages, because they would parse into A, B, C tranches, and then they take A tranches out of a whole bunch of others and then parse them into A, B, C, and then they do that again. I think Wayne probably knows a lot more about this than I do. I sat in a couple of conferences at the time about that because I was interested in potentially looking at 400, $100 or $1 million more mortgages, because if they're typically they had about 400 people attached to them, and I felt I could get a team together to analyze 400 companies. But once it started getting into you couldn't do the residential at all. It was just way too many, and that's how they lost track of a lot of things.
Sure.
So where is the debt in the country today? Does anybody have any feeling?
Well, when you're paying $1 trillion a year in interest on your national debt, and I understand that credit card debt nationwide is higher than it's ever been.
I can see that.
I've heard the same thing.
But what is the impact, though, for the economy? I mean, those people just got to stop buying, right? So it would be some demand for goods and services because the credit card is full.
I think that's happening in a lot of cases.
Yeah, but the thing is, the job market is okay. I remember people can get work, right, to help pay that off. The only question is they can't buy more, that they have in the past because their credit card is full. So will that affect the economy? I mean,
well, and the other thing is you drive by new developments and people have bought new homes, and there's motor homes, there's boats, there's everything else along the property. I just think people have got themselves so far in debt, it's ridiculous.
So they're overextended.
They're overextended.
But I think some of it is, it's not just deliberate overextension. I think that inflation has hurt a lot, and people have put things, that they want to continue with life and their families, but that they are taking out more on the credit cards. And the jobs, while the job employment is true, wages still haven't kept up with what the inflation rate has been in the economy. And so I think that's part of the reason why a lot of people, men especially, voted for Trump, is because I think they felt that any give outs by the government were not going to be going to them, and they see themselves as getting behind. I mean, I go to a local sweet shop a number of mornings, and I listen to the conversations there, and it's average people, and they're just the taxes are going up at a rate faster than what they can pay them.
Well, and the other thing is, they claim the number one complaint in the U.S. is grocery store costs.
I feel that, definitely.
I mean, you don't go to the store, you don't spend $100 and walk out with one small sack.
Sure. Well, the other thing that's not in the news is the default rate. You don't hear anything about defaults on mortgages or defaults on consumer credit. So I'm wondering, I think going back to your question, Greg, it's are banks feeling so positive that they're willing to give people more credit whenever they hit their limit? So if you've got a job and you're making payments, I think the banks have a tendency right now to say, okay, we'll give you more credit. People dig the hole deeper and deeper, and it's almost as if they're mirroring what's happening nationally, which is what's happening to us. We get to our debt limit. What do? Congress says, okay, we'll raise it. And so as long as banks in our nation are trying to do that, and people are starting, I think these younger people are starting to think, well, if the federal government can survive by taking on debt, so can I.
Boy.
But I don't know. I mean, that's not the way I was raised. I mean, I rarely ever, had consumer debt on a credit card. I mean, I paid it off every month.
In the real estate market, we're starting to see some foreclosures that I haven't seen in a long time.
Okay.
And the other thing I'm seeing, customers that I never thought would have a problem are having a problem, and it's from overextending themselves. The other thing is insurance rates. And our insurance rates went up 42%. I'm on the board of our community condo association, so I started arguing that with the insurance companies. We got a reduction of about 30 grand on a multi-million-dollar property, big deal. It's just insane, and with all the damage up in the Carolinas, up everywhere, from the storms, I'm not sure it's over yet.
I've had a problem with insurance rates down in Florida. First one company canceled and pulled out. And then the other companies have all raised the rates in the last 2 years quite dramatically.
Yeah.
Well, the governor is doing a few good things to bring some people back, and it seems to be working. And I think just the fact that he got involved made him come to a reality that they better get sensible or they're not going to be doing business down here. There's plenty of business to do yet. We're still seeing, I sold 2 last weekend. There's still a lot of people coming in to buy, and especially it's the beginning of the season. So, the market isn't hurt by it. The biggest problem is whether people that want to live on the water or thought they wanted to live on the water because they're boaters, etc., do they want to put up with the anticipation that we might get flooded? This is my 34th year here, and we never had the flooding that we had in this year. But we went 12 years without even a storm. So now we've got 3 and possibly another one coming.
Yeah.
And we've lost lots of properties. The last one down on the beach, we just finished it. Just put in the new impact glass sliders, and a wave came in and went through both sets, the same property. So it got hammered pretty hard.
I know my Florida car insurance. Right now, I've got an old Toyota. I got 2000, roughly 2005, 2006 Toyota Camry. One in New York and one in Florida. And actually, I've got my brother's Jeep up in New York. So I've got 2 cars on insurance in New York, which is pretty heavily trafficked. I just went through the city. I had to go into New Jersey yesterday, so I would spend several hours in traffic going through it. But my insurance in New York is 1/2 what I'm paying for in Florida. And the car in Florida is not moving because I'm in New York right now. It's absolutely absolutely ridiculous.
You're just paying the garage cost.
Well, it's out in the open, but yeah.
Oh,
The personal property taxes that I was paying in Kansas, I've got a real estate company in Kansas as well, and I moved my homestead to Florida years ago because the personal property tax on a decent car was $1,200 a year. My registration tax down here the first time was like $400, and now it's peanuts every year. I don't pay much as far as the car. I do pay more towards the insurance. But in Kansas, every year it was $1,200 if you drove a decent car. And it's probably more than that now. I'm not ready to leave the sunshine in.
No.
As I said, I'm just trying to pay attention to where the debt is in this country because I think that's where you're going to have the reconciliation. And a lot of times people don't notice it until everybody does, and then it collapses.
yeah.
They can't afford a house down here. People come in, the working class people are driving 30, 40 miles to work now.
You have the same problem in Utah, pretty much everywhere. The average working person can't afford to buy a house with what the houses have gone up in value. Even a starter home is unbelievable.
And the builders, the thing I've read is that the builders are not building the entry level houses.
No, they're not.
Yeah, there's no margin there for them, right?
So-
they're looking at.
So entry level houses have got to be a resale. Dwayne, you can tell us if that's true or not, but
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody you see.
You gotta force the community or the city, whatever you call it, for having X amount of affordable housing. In other words, it's got to either be subsidized or something to make that happen. I mean, the builders are not going to go after that because there's no money in them. They don't make any money on a low cost house. There's just nothing there. There's no margin, right? After you pay, everything to develop it, they're not going to do it for, a couple $1,000. They want to make $100,000-$200,000 on each unit.
I mean, I see more.
So the prices are $2-3 million.
I see more townhouses. I mean, there's more townhouses being built than there are single family houses. At least when I drive around and what I see.
And the permitting costs and the time it takes to build are just insane. I mean, it is just crazy. It just takes you too long. The cost of the land is high, so your holding costs are high. The permitting takes forever, and time they get done, they're not sure where the price is going to be.
Well, good Lord, I look at the number of apartment complexes that are being built and what they charge for rent is absolutely unbelievable. I mean, you got $2,400 a month in rent to move into one of these apartment complexes. But people don't have the funds to get into a house.
Right.
The down payment for the money you need to get into a house.
Yeah.
Well, plus if they have a lot of credit card debt, that even makes it worse. You see,
And the zero interest loan, to get you in. I mean, that's gone.
And yet 72% of my sales are cash.
okay,
Yeah.
so
Must have made it in the stock market.
somewhere I guess.
I can look back to,
Or if you've got northerners coming down, the value of the house up north is a lot higher than what they're looking to buy with you. So they're selling their house. They don't want to, take a lot of taxes on the price coming in, and they're going to invest in something that's equal to or greater than what they tried to sell in New York, hoping that the value of the house is actually better than the cash.
see, in southern Utah, St. George is down in the desert, has been invaded by California. I mean, people have sold their homes in California and moved down to St. George, paid cash for a home, and moved down there.
Which also raises the prices in St. George.
Oh, it sure as hell has. Everything's gone sky high.
Sure.
I mean, the
Well,
only
it
thing
means Bob, you can sell, but now where do you go? You're going to spend as much as
I
you
look at what I paid for. We bought a second home down there, a getaway place, a 1,300 square foot home. I look at what I paid for it, and I look what it's worth. Hell, I wouldn't buy it now for what it's worth. If I put that house up for sale, it'd be gone in a week,
Uh-huh. Okay.
if not a day. They go that fast.
Yeah.
Something for the kids to worry about down the road. What the hell?
So that gets back to Greg's question. What's going to cause the economy to crash? It's not the mortgage part. It's not the job market. I mean, our unemployment rate is low. Okay, so the jobs are out there, and so what would be the factor? I don't. If we start lowering the price of oil, I think that's a positive effect. It's going to.
yes.
It's going to help everybody. It's going to be. The thing is, prices have gone up. They're not going to go down. I mean, a dozen of eggs is $5, right? So what's going to, it used to be $2 or $2.50. I think it's doubled. Price of eggs has doubled. At least as I look at the prices, that's not going to go back to $2. Okay, $2.50.
What's interest on a home? If
So
you
we're
bought a
stuck
new
at the
home now,
prices.
what is interest now? if you wanted to buy a home.
7%.
They,
Okay.
in 1980, it was over 15%.
Right.
They don't realize that.
So
And,
I mean,
and in
7%.
1970, it was about 6.5 to 7%. So we're about where we were in 1970.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's not outrageous. That's that's
That's
That's a good rate.
horrible.
I keep telling everybody that's a good rate. Don't argue the rate.
Yeah.
I mean, just go ahead and buy, and then
Buy the property, yeah, because the value, chances are it will go up, right?
Well,
Well-
one of the issues with the employment rate, though, is the quality of the jobs and how much the jobs are making. That's another thing that Trump has managed to. I didn't like either candidate. Okay, but one of the things that Trump pointed out and is to take the taxes off the tips and the wages, because those are jobs that are available, and there are a lot of jobs. But those jobs, I don't think you can buy a house with like a waitress job. You have that's a secondary job. You have to have another person that's getting equal to or more than that to be able to buy a house. So you can have 1,000 waitress jobs, and you're not going to buy houses with it.
You're right. You're right.
get pretty creative.
Okay.
I have
But
a question.
suppose it would still help the economy, right? Those people don't pay a tax; they're going to buy something with it, right? I mean, the consumer kind of, they're going to spend it. They're not putting it in the bank and saving it. That tax piece on the tip, they're going to buy something with it, because that's the level they're at. They're going, paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you go to a lot of restaurants now, and they've got empty tables, but they can't seat you until somebody leaves because they don't have enough servers.
Yeah.
Mary's got a question. Mary's got a question.
Okay.
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not trying to change the subject, but I thought that the number of banks on the verge of bankruptcy was higher than it's been since the 20s, and that commercial real estate was a great big problem right now because office buildings were empty. Now, you're talking to someone who has lived in the United States for 13 years, so I might be wrong.
I don't
Well,
know.
that's because a lot of people are still working from home. The businesses where everything is being done, they're letting people work from home and they don't need the office space.
They're building office space like crazy down here. It's insane in Fort Myers. I
Okay.
mean, it's just crazy. Of course, they're getting a lot of people coming in, but what irritates me is the Social Security. I pay tax on all my earnings. I pay it into Social Security. They use it for 30 or 40 years, and then they pay me Social Security and make me pay tax on it again. That
That
just,
irritates the hell out of me.
just drives me crazy.
I think it irritates all Americans. And in the beginning, it wasn't that way. They instituted that tax sometime after Social Security started.
Right. And it has not been indexed. So that's,
Well, we've had some lively conversation today, that's for sure. Okay.
well, it's been good because I'm trying to think about the forecast for next year.
The only other one statement I have is, the multiples for a lot of companies, especially tech companies, seem to be higher. And, they used to be, 10 to 12 to 13, and now they're like 21, 22.
Well, that's because the market's been way up. So the question is, are we peaking out? I mean, 44,000 on the Dow, it's come below that now. Is that kind of the high water mark? Is that, we're going to get above that next year? I don't know. I mean, what is the driving force, okay? And, if credit card debt is too high, it's not the consumer that's going to move the economy. It's got to be something else. I hope it's not war.
So do I.
But, people are saying, at least I'll call it, supply of munitions has deteriorated to the point where if we got into a war with China, we could only last for 6 weeks. And we would be out of munitions, which is kind of sad, right? We've transported it to Israel and to Ukraine and to all the other countries, and we have not restocked. So it's, situation that I hope that, the administration looks at very closely. Because you never know what China is going to do. I mean, they're positioning themselves to take over a lot of real estate. Countries, parts of countries. I mean, they sent, 30,000 Chinese came across the border? 35,000? What are they doing here? Are they all
I didn't hear
spies?
that. That's interesting.
I mean,
See,
it
and
used to
that's-
happen that way, but somehow they got here and somebody gave them the money to get here.
Well, and living in the West, you see the effects of the border more than you do where you are.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Except for the clever idea of busing them to New York.
Share the
They're starting
fun.
to clamp down there now too. No more housing, no more credit card, debit card, free phones. Oh my goodness. So I don't know.
Every time I've seen a collapse, it's been something that has been caused usually by the government or a foreign calamity. I mean, like, when the savings and loan debacle crashed and the mortgage industry crashed, and of course the .com was kind of like, I got back into the market about the time it did that. But now we're kind of seeing, I'm kind of feeling the same way, like the .com, and I don't know why. I feel like the AI is really good and really interesting, and it's finally got my attention after all these years. But I feel like it's being overemphasized and overpriced. Like you said, the multiples are extremely high. The only other thing that I lost a lot of money on is when we had foreign wars, and I had the head of the Hyatt hotel chain buy a house for me, and 3 days later the Gulf War broke out and scared him. So it's going to be something like you said outside probably, or something that the government causes. I'm all for cutting the fat out of the government. I just I know people that have jobs that collect a lot of money that don't do anything, and brag about it. So
They do, and I think that's going to change.
well, I think it should. I mean, we know it should have for a long time ago, but which ones are real and doing the job, and which ones aren't.
Well,
So
it's like the joke that goes around. The State Road Commission laid off half their employees. They found out shovels could stand up by themselves.
it's going to be interesting.
Yes, Mary.
Go ahead, Mary.
How big of an effect do you think BRICS has on anything?
Say the Brits.
BRICS. Brazil, Russia, India,
Oh.
China.
Well,
And they've denominated their own currency. That just came out, I think, last week. It seems like it's an east-west kind of standoff.
well, right. I mean, they want to trade oil in not in dollars. So
Right.
that's part of the risk that the U.S. The dollar, if it disappears, then that could be a major event, Gregory.
Exactly.
So I mean,
Well,
you're talking
because-
about something significant. That is significant.
Look
Yeah.
how high
And
Bitcoin-
unexpected.
Yeah, unexpected. Right.
I mean, the next war could easily just be an economic war,
Right.
not a war of forces and arms, but who can corner the market in particular raw supplies, who can manipulate currencies and sanctions,
Right.
tariffs. I mean, it's those become the new tools of the new war.
Oh, we've been in an economic war with China for decades right now. It's just the United States hasn't recognized it. able to say, well, we can get lower prices. Once they've taken manufacturing away, what follows manufacturing? Guess what? The engineers. So we've lost a lot of engineering talent. Not in software. We have tons of software engineers, and they're earning good salaries. But mechanical engineers and those kind of engineers, they're making less than a lot of policemen in places, and people don't realize that yet. And there used to be a lot of higher, not highest end home buyers, but pretty high end home buyers, and they can't afford it. So our police are making better, not so much in the Midwest, but towards the coast, a lot of them tend to be making better salaries than a lot of the engineers that are right now, and that's another issue. Is the jobs that we've given to China.
I've not been on a college campus in a long time, but I think that there's a lot of the students in our universities are foreign students. They come here to get educated and leave.
Westinghouse is moving a lot of their manufacturing back into the U.S.
That's good.
Because what they have saved on having the appliances built abroad, they're losing their butt on the warranty repair because the quality isn't there for the appliance to keep running and not have to spend a lot of money with warranty repairs on what's being sold.
I mean, transportation costs has got to be eaten into some of that too. I mean, it's not cheap to load up container ships and haul them across the ocean.
Trucking over the road. I mean, all the paper mills I sold to were up in the Pacific Northwest, most of them. And I look at what I paid for trucking then and what it costs now to run a semi-load of scrap paper up there. Yeah. It's a whole different world. They have a shortage of trucks. They have a shortage of truck drivers, and that's changing that part of the economy. So it just sitting and watching what's going on. I'm glad I'm where I'm at. I'm glad I'm retired. Because the battles that I would have to fight today, I didn't have to contend with 19 years ago. It's changing.
It's changing.
I'm interested to see Ron's forecast for 2025.
Yeah.
So am I. Poor Ron.
Well, I'm
Come on,
going
Ron.
to get good right now from everybody here. So
Pull that rabbit out of that hat.
what is
Why,
that major event?
You're going to give him a lot of sleepless nights. Don't be ashamed.
All right.
Let's quit while we're ahead, okay? All right. Well, thank you all for being.
Like you say, one more month left this year, and then I got to think about what factors are going up or down. But it's hard to forecast that major significant event. Like if we lost the dollar as the world currency, that would be a major event. And I don't know what happened. I mean,
what Bitcoin went to
the
this
stock market crash. So.
My only problem with Bitcoin is the scammers I've been dealing with in this market. There's $1.1 billion lost to property scammers in the last 4 years. And why isn't somebody doing something about that? I've got some ideas, but it's not like I need another business, but I might.
What do you mean property scammers?
They call and say, "Hi, I'm Mr. So and So from Maryland, and I'd like to list my lot." I said, "Okay." And he said, "What's it worth?" And I said, "Oh, it just so happens that it's 2 blocks from me. I've lived here in this area for 20 years. I can give you a good price here in a couple of days." He said, "Fine." So I call him and tell him what it will sell for. I mean, I've been in the business 51 years, so it's not like I don't have a pretty good idea what it might sell for. And I tell him, and he said, "Great, let's put it on for 30,000 less." And this is what they do. I said, 30,000 less? I said, "You don't need to do that." "Oh, no, I want to sell it right now. I want out with this thing." And I said, "Well, it did get flooded. There's some trash on it. Trees need trimmed. Fence needs fixed." He said, "Well, give me a bid." So I get the bid. He comes back and says, "Now there's no money in it." He said, "Unless you want to pay for it, and I'll pay you back at closing." I said, "No, it's not my job to take care of your property." So anyway, I called my handyman. I said, "Would you go over and just clean up the front of it for $100? And he said, "Sure." So I called him back and I said, "Hey, I got the front of your property cleaned up for $100. He said, "No, another red flag." Not going to spend any money on it. Just sell it. Well, within 10 days, I get an all-cash offer. And now I'm about half panicked because I don't think he's a real seller.
He's not the real owner.
He's not the real owner. He's just acting like the real owner. So I asked him to send me a driver's license, bank statement. He did. Sent the driver's license up to the police department up in Maryland. And he said, yeah, that's the owner. Know him very well, small town. I said, well, would you go out and see if he wants to really sell his lot? He said, no, I can't do that. I said, really? I can't do that? He said, yeah, no crime's been committed. I said, I think there's a crime in the process. He said, I won't do it. So I called a cyber detective down on our police department. I said, would you check this out to see if this is the real guy? And he said, well, will do. A couple of days later, he called me back. He said, well, guess what? He said, first of all, the bank statement, which was very healthy, is not his. And second of all, the driver's license, it is his picture, but the driver's license belongs to a black guy. And so at that point, I knew that it was a scam. But the agent that sold the property was furious with me. He was a new agent. He wanted it closed right now because he needed the money to stay in business. You know, and he's yelling and screaming at me. And I said, hey, we're stopping this deal. And I called the title company. And we sent 2 FedExes up to the owner. They were both received. Neither one of them were responded to. You know, so how does it happen? Is the scammer next door? I mean, what's going on? Is the police department involved? I don't know. I couldn't get anybody to cooperate up there. You know, so we just stopped the deal, and it was a scam. But this is going on. I got 2 FBI agents that I've worked for, and they one of them, I was telling him about the scam, and he said, well, I can't imagine that happening. And the next week, somebody tried to rent his property that he just moved out of, and they were faking it like it was like they were the owner trying to rent the property. And so he called me back. He said, "This is real, isn't it?" And I said, "It is real. You know, this is going on." So you know, it is scary. But back to the problem is the other agent that I had. He said, you know, when it goes into when the money gets wired to a bank, they can move that money 8 to 9 times in 72 minutes. And then it goes into Bitcoin or something, it's gone. We can't get it. So, you know, I'm all for Bitcoin. I like the concept. I like the anonymity of it. The problem is it's not backed by anything, and it's just a greater fool theory, which is why I didn't buy it in the first place. I was offered Bitcoin at $175, you know, and I didn't take it because I had been in property exchanging, and we had the same thing on paper where you got exchange dollars. And I ended up with 10,000 exchange dollars that nobody wanted. And I didn't want to end up with $10,000 in Bitcoin that nobody wanted. You know, but as it turned out, it wasn't quite that way. But you know, there's a lot of different problems in our society. I mean, we got $1 billion we can't even account for in Afghanistan that went over there. Nobody knows where it went to. And it's things like this that you know, no wonder we have a debt. When you can't, you know, when you can't account for it, who's got the money? So, anyway, maybe we'll find out. Something's gotta improve, and I really like your forecast, and I wish I knew more about the program that you have. I've used it for 6 or 7 years now, and I don't know anything about it. I mean, I feel like it is so advanced. Everything is so far along. I can't believe you don't have thousands of people wanting to use it. I mean, it is very, very, very good. I know it's quick and gives me answers very quickly, and it's about the only thing I've ever made money in the stock market. So.
Great.
Keep up the good work.
Okay.
All right.
You know, I like Ron's program, but my problem in getting it is putting the different pieces together. It is advanced, but I'm just having trouble getting down into it, having a line of thought, like an outline that I could go and search the outline for. Okay, this is what this particular thing does, and it has some more things. The details are in there sometimes, and you have to find them or remember them, and that's sort of the problem that I'm having. for me. And you're right, it's very good, it's very advanced, and should think that there should be more people lining up at the door to get it, but I just haven't gotten through to it. And as Tommy knows, the trouble that I've had with it, in terms of not me, getting going forward.
How many years? How many years have you had that program?
Excuse me,
Ron, how many years have you had that program?
Well, let's see.
I'm trying to figure out how long I've been doing this.
Right, you've been doing it since 2001, I believe.
Okay.
All right, so that's.
I think that's when my dad signed up with you, Ron. It
23
was about that time.
Yeah, you put up with me for a long time.
I mean, it's evolved significantly, but now, I mean, it's at the point where it really should be called an AI system. I mean, that processing on the chart is significant.
Yeah, I was just looking at the first book, The Money Tree. So that was 2002.
Right. Okay.
I read it on an airplane.
I found it in a hotel gift shop on Marco Island. Ron probably personally.
Seminar back in Marco Island.
Yeah. All right, everyone. We've had a great, lively discussion today. It's been good. Appreciate all of y'all participating and us going through things. So we'll get together one last time this year in December. Hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving. And if you're going to travel like I am, then hopefully everyone will have safe travels. Get back together here in December. All right?
Thank you all. Thank you very much.
All right, and take good notes because I want some more info.
Thank you.
In December.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Yep.